Thank you for joining me today, because today I am going to show you what you will need to know if you are going to be making the move here to Vancouver, Washington. Whether should you be moving on the east side, west side, central, what are you going to encounter with the neighborhoods, what's available to you in those areas, and some things that you will want to be careful to maybe consider if you're going to be making the move. So stay tuned. We'll get right after it. Okay, so I don't know about you, but whenever I was looking to relocate into a different area, I was looking at a map, trying to get my bearings on what was in what location, how far was it going to be, and was that an area that I really wanted to live in? And so when we look at the map here, it's very important to see that you see this red dotted line. And in this dotted line, that is what's considered the city, in the city limits of Vancouver, Washington. But of course, it doesn't include all of Vancouver, Washington, because you have outside of the city limits, which is the county area. And that is going to be those outlining suburbs of what we see here as Philida, Salmon Creek, Barberton, Mount Vista, Minnehaha, Hazeldale, and then of course, as we go up further, you're going to be seeing some other areas as well. But today, for the sake of keeping this video small, I'm going to talk about the specific areas closest to the Columbia River, which is going to be within Vancouver city limits, which is where the little red dotted lines are on this map. Okay, let's start with the west side of I-5. And on the west side of I-5, remember, we're staying inside the dotted red lines, which is the city of Vancouver, Washington. So we're not talking about the outlying suburbs. That will be for a later video. But for today and for the sake of time and trying to give you in this video driving content as well, because I don't want you to be looking at my face in a map the whole time. Frankly, that drives me crazy. So in this video, I'm going to show you some of the streets as I'm talking so that you can see what they look like and you actually can see firsthand some things that you'll want to be mindful of or consider if you're going to make the move here and if you're looking at moving within Vancouver city limits. So let's start on the west side of I-5. On the west side of I-5, of course, we have the waterfront that borders Columbia River. Everybody wants to be on a waterfront. You just have to have a price tag associated with that, unfortunately. There are condos that are for sale, over $1 million for sure. As you get a few streets up, though, there is some other condos that are in the mid fives going up to sevens. And then, of course, as you're getting a little further south, that's where the pricing, of course, gets a little bit better. We won't talk about the condos yet on the opposite side of the, what I call central of the I-5. We will talk about that in a minute. But anyway, but let's talk about the west side. So yes, you have the waterfront. There are beautiful certain communities, pockets of areas that a lot of my clients will want to look to get into because they want to be in the downtown Vancouver area. They want to have, walk down to the coffee shops or to a local little store, see some of the little boutique shops, walk the waterfront, have the restaurant feel, they just really want an easy maintenance life. And so with that being said, there's some great communities within the west side of I-5, in which that would be Arnada. Arnada is a very popular community. A lot of people want to be in that community. It's only a few streets going east, west, north, and south, believe it or not. But beautiful style historical homes, beautiful pride of ownership. And then you have areas that are a little bit north to that, which is called Lincoln. In the Lincoln area, same thing. I call it the Leave It to Beaver neighborhoods because I love the wide streets and the trees when they're blooming and in the summertime are just absolutely stunning. And so you have the big trees and the wide streets, and you have these beautiful, just older, historical home. I mean, they're just from 40s, 1950s. They have a lot of the original charm to them. And so a lot of people want to be in the Lincoln area, which is about 39th Street, moving up. Of course, it says Lincoln there. Now, the other areas I want you to be mindful of is, remember I was talking about, like, there's certain areas where you love it, and then 5 streets or more down, you're like, well, the further that you go west from I-5, and really it feels like it's around the Kaufman area. That's where you get to be more industrial. It's more of an industrial area. You're going to have more commercial buildings. You still have some really cute homes, but it just be, I don't know how to describe it. You just have a little bit different feel. Obviously I'm showing you the footage of it, but again, in this area, for one, you're going to be next to the very active railroad track. And then secondly, there's a lot more rentals in that area. So, so sometimes not everything is kept with pride of ownership. And so it's just some things to be mindful as you're veering further going west away from the I-5. Now, that being said, when you hit what's called Fruit Valley Road, there is some beautiful pockets of little neighborhoods in that area as it begins to move south on Fruit Valley Road over by the elementary school. And then there's some industrial areas in there. Frito-Lay is over there, and some other commercial facilities are over in that area. And so when you're looking at the west side, there's pocket areas, which is why when my clients come into town, we talk about what they're looking for in a home, their ideal location, and that allows me to be able to help navigate and give additional information than what I can do here to them regarding specific areas. And so for right now, this is just a summary of what I tell them on what they're going to encounter on the west side of I-5. Let's discuss on what you will encounter if you were to purchase centrally here in Vancouver, Washington. And of course, central being in between the I-5 and the I-205 and the SR 500, kind of being that northern border. Now, mind you, I do know that we have those two little nubs that go up there, which includes the Vancouver Mall, and then overall along the I-5 side, it includes part of the area which would be considered Hazeldale. And so, but for the sake of keeping it, let's just keep it within the SR 500 going down to the Highway 14. So looking centrally located, first and foremost, people, when they're looking to buy centrally, it's great and it's perfect only because SR 500 is the easy fairway that takes you onto the I-5 going over into Portland, or I-205 going into the Portland International Airport, or working into Gresham or Hillsborough or wherever in the Oregon area. And so a lot of people, ideally, they want to be able to get kind of close to the I-5 side because that allows it to be closer to that waterfront feel and all the conveniences of the shopping, the stores, and things like that. However, it also gives the ability, without paying that premium price, to be able to find a home that they can get that peekaboo view of the river, and just make a few little renovations in order to make it their own and still be able to afford it. So that being said, there are, like I said, a few condos on the east side here of the I-205, which are more affordable, that are have some views or peekaboo views of the river that are under 600,000 that you can get into the condo association. Now, those with the river will maybe go up a little bit higher than that, mind you, depending on what level they're on. But there are condos over on this side. Also, there's wonderful waterfront restaurants as well on this side. Also, some that are going to be torn down and rebuilt, along with kind of a commercial underneath with the apartments and then condos for sale above that. And so those are up and coming, but still a little ways off. But right now you still have some great little local restaurants that have been here for a long time. Beaches is one of those local ones. McMinimum's is more of a chain, but they're there. Also, there's a great little place called the Cove that you can go and eat right on the water. A lot of people love to do that during the summertime. And so let's talk about the communities here centrally located and what you're going to encounter. Now, first and foremost, they are very diverse, because in between SR 500 and Highway 14, you're going to have, let's kind of talk about the east side here. When we're looking over by where Clark College is here, and you're going to see Fort Vancouver, National Historic Site. Now, when you're looking just to the east of that, that's the community people are going to want to get into, which is called Southwest Heights. And again, it's because it kind of goes up on a hillside, and that gives that opportunity to have a view of the river. However, it is going to be older homes, ranch style homes, sometimes a daylight ranch. So you will need to do renovations, but You get to make it your own, right? So, and so outside of that, though, as you begin to go north, there's some things to be kind of mindful of over on this side, kind of over by I-5, and that is when you look at Clark College from 4th Plain going up to SR 500, which is like this 33rd Street area here, going all the way to 54th. I just need to let you know that's considered the Rosemere area. There's a lot of rentals or a lot of owners that are choosing to keep their homes as rentals, so it's a lot of smaller bungalow homes there. And so because of that, you're not going to have that 5-star feel. And so, you're going to need to find the pocket areas coming below that, going down towards the river. And with that, you're going to have older homes, because you got to remember, back in the day, this is where the port was. This is where the hub of business was. So a lot of homes went into this area so they can work close to the port doing those type of jobs. And, they didn't have all the modern travel conveniences until, as time went on. So we still have a lot of those smaller footprint of subdivisions. You don't have a lot of newer subdivisions in there. If we do, they're very small pockets and they're very tight and close, very friendly. And so you just want to be mindful of that. But as you begin to go east towards the I-205, that's where you're going to find different communities like South Clef, Vancouver Heights, Evergreen, Highlands, and those are ideal locations because it gets you closer to the Peace Health Southwest Medical Center. You have a wonderful golf course that's over in that area. And of course, let's not forget the Vancouver Mall, which is our only indoor mall that we have here in Southwest Washington. Everything else is, of course, town center style homes. But over in these areas, they're going to be older homes. However, not all of them, as you begin to go up, are not going to have the view, but what you are going to have is wider streets, tall, beautiful trees that make you feel a little bit more spacey and roomy, and you're still going to have all the conveniences of the shopping with the Walmart and the Fred Meyers, and we do have the Costco that is centrally located just a little bit further up past the Vancouver Mall, not within the city Vancouver limits, but it's still considered to be central Vancouver here in between the two major fairways. And so it's ideal. I call it between the wishbone center of everything, and you still have good pockets of new construction, but they're just smaller pockets. And so but that's what you're going to have here in Vancouver, people. You're going to have, they believed in like this sardine mentality, very condensed. You're going to leave one community and you're like, wait a minute, I thought I was in a 2020 community. Now I went back in time and I'm in a 1970 community. I feel like, what happened? And it's because as they release the zoning, it allowed them to be able to put pockets of new homes in there. And it's all about trying to get as many homes closer into town as possible. So unfortunately, that's kind of what you're going to encounter. You're not going to have large planned communities when you're centrally located. You're going to get more of that as you move north into Ridgefield. Of course, they tried to get it into that sort of as they came into Washougal and into Camas. But the commercial going into Washougal has not quite hit there. Camas, it has, but that is not in this specific video. So, but I did do some other videos on Camas, so be sure to watch that. But this is, so far, the information I want to give you regarding Central. So let's move on to the east side. Everybody wants to move on the east side. So let's just talk about it, shall we? East side is going to be on, of course, the east side of the I-205, right? Because we want to keep it simple here. And what makes this area so desirable is just how well the communities were built, meaning there were larger subdivisions put in, lots of sidewalks, lots of little community parks. And they were more spread out. They weren't as condensed, right? Because they weren't on that west side of town where it all started out as a little port town and all the homes were kind of crammed in there to get as close to the port as possible because that was their way of life. And so on this east side, we have larger communities. They're not planned communities in that they're not gated, but so that you have just like little neighborhoods that were just added on to one another, keeping the same concept. And so a lot of people love the Fisher's Landing area. That is one of the communities that a lot of people look to get into. Some things to be mindful of, though, of Fisher's Landing is the fact that there are a lot of restrictions on some of the communities in that they do not allow you to rent. unless it's military, and even then there's certain stipulations with that, so you do want to be more careful with that. But overall, on the east side of town, there are major stores, both Whole Food stores. We have the Costco over there. We have a Costco, of course, centrally located as well. I didn't mention that, sorry. But we do, the Costco on that east side, as well as Walmart and Fred Meyer's. Those are our grocery stores. Winco's, all of those grocery stores are on that side, as well as town centers for clothing stores and, different little boutiques and things like that as well. And so there are certain areas on the east side that a lot of people love to be able to be near and by. One of them, of course, is in that cute little community of Cascade West. Also, there's another one known as Mountain View. There's another one known as Cascade Highlands. And that's because, especially with Cascade West and Cascade Highlands, some of those are larger communities of 55 and older. And so it's really nice that they created just this larger community, not only of just condos, but of detached homes. And they really work really well at bringing a sense of community in that area. So a lot of people like the Cascade Highlands area, Cascade West and East areas because of that, as well as you have the big streets with the big trees and the sidewalks. And so you just don't feel as crammed in. Now, just so you know, in Fisher's Landing, in those communities, they are very condensed. So you're going to have homes that are around 3 to 5 feet apart. 2-story a lot of the time. If you have a single level, it's going to be a smaller single level. And again, as you begin to push north up a little bit, just, of course, we're keeping within city limits here within Vancouver, you're going to hit certain areas like Hearthwood, which is over by the old airport there, that since got, of course, sold off, and they promised us a mall, which hasn't come yet. They do have a senior living, big, huge facility there and a hotel that's gone in, but we're missing some of the other parts there, which is just right off of the Mill Plain road there. But anyway, but all of that to be said, East Side is really, really the place, and that's just because we do have tech out there. We do have a lot of investment companies and different types of work that is over on the east side of town. And also it's closer to the Portland International Airport for those who are commuting still out of state, but enjoy the conveniences of working at home, usually around 90% of the time. So the one thing I do want to be sure to stress with living on the east side is that the further north that you go on what is considered 162nd Avenue, that is all lights. So you're going to have to get through all of those lights, and there's a lot of them, before you get to the freeway, the Highway 14 freeway, so that you can then connect onto the I-5 or onto the I-205. Now, just so you know, from the east side over here, connecting all the way to I-5 on Highway 14, you're going to have around a 15, if it's heavy traffic, maybe 18 minutes before you reach the I-5 bridge to then cross over. I-205, there in minutes. Simple, easy peasy. But other than that, so you just want to be mindful the more north that you go on 162nd, because of the lights. That being said, there is a section within the city limits which is off 192nd, and that was the most revitalized, or new, should I say, with a lot of new commercial coming in. 192nd, that's where we have a lot of the higher end homes being put in there as well. And not to mention that, you have the Walmart and the Costco that are right on 192nd there. And so in this area, though, the price points on average are over and above $700,000. As you get more towards the I-205 bridge within the east side of town, you will have more opportunity for the mid 5s, 6s, some of them in the 4s, but depending on the square footage of the home. And so it really is going to depend on, are you on the, the east side of 162nd, going further east, going into 192nd and then going into Camas, or are you going to be on the west side of 162nd, still on technically the east side of town? So all of that to be said, a lot of information to go and provide to you, but I just wanted to break up just some simple information for you, give you some photos of what I'm talking about here. I hope you find it informative. Certainly drop some comments on maybe some other information that you're looking for. Be happy to give it to you. That's what I'm here for, as your local real estate expert. So thank you so much. And until next time, have a great home buying and selling day.